Good evening, viewers and listeners, and welcome to this another edition of the program Serving the People, which is brought to you every Wednesday at 6 p.m. by the Democratic Republican Party, the DRP. I'm your host and founder of the DRP, Mrs. Anissa Batiste. Now please let us start this program with a word of prayer. Loving Father in heaven, do bless our viewers and listeners with inspiration and enlightenment and education as we explain to them what is the true role of representatives of the people. May they understand everything that would be said, and may they be inspired to support the DRP as the alternative for good governance in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In Jesus' name I pray with thanksgiving. Amen. And now, dear viewers, listeners, let me remind you that if you wish to contact me here at this program, you may call the number that's on your screen right now. It's 528-1015. That's 528-1015. And if you wish to send an email, the address is on your screen again, servingthepeople.ab@gmail.com. That's servingthepeople.ab@gmail.com. In this evening's program, I wish to talk with you. I want us to have a talk. Yes, a talk about some of the issues that have been confronting us recently with respect to the disaster that happened in December and the relief efforts, and also to talk about what happened in the Parliament today. That is the day when I'm recording this program. By the time you're seeing it, it would have been yesterday, because it is very important for me to address some of the things which took place. First of all, I would like to sort of give you a review of what the DRP has been doing in terms of the disaster relief. We all know that on the 24th, the night of the 24th into the 25th of December 2013, our country suffered the effects of a trough system which created a lot of damage to infrastructure, including loss of lives included in the damage. And we all are very sorry for what has happened. We've expressed condolences to families who have lost relatives, and also we're concerned about the lack of closure for those who are still missing, the families of those who are still missing. We know that several agencies have been involved in taking assistance to affected persons around the island. We know that foreign governments have been very generous to us here in this country in pledging relief support and in actually sending relief support. And we are truly grateful for all the assistance that we have been receiving. However, there is a big issue that is on the table with respect to alleged politicization, of the relief effort. And there are claims by persons, including from the opposition NDP, that the government and government agencies such as NEMO is involved in politicizing the relief effort on the ground. I wish to talk to you about the experience of the DRP led by me, Anissa Batiste, in the relief efforts, and to talk about my experience also with the National Emergency Management Operations, NEMO, because I believe that the manner in which some of the things are being represented against NEMO and public servants is unfair, irresponsible, or careless in terms of some of the claims that are being made without grounds. And I want to address some of it because I want you to know the truth, and I want you to listen to me very carefully. First of all, I want to tell you a bit about myself and my experience to help you to understand why I consider things that I am saying. As a public servant, when I worked with the Ministry of Tourism, Anissa Batiste, I was the communications manager there. And while a public servant there, I learned a lot about NEMO and its operations, because at that time I was also selected by my PS, by my ministry, to be the ministry's point person to deal with disaster management. Because as you know, disaster management affects all sectors of government. In any disaster, all sectors could be affected, whether it be agriculture, forestry, fisheries, and tourism. Certainly, and I was working with the Ministry of Tourism. So what happened is that NEMO had several committees, and on these committees you would have representation from different parts of the government, different ministries and departments. From the Ministry of Tourism, I represented the Ministry of Tourism on at least one committee in NEMO. And whenever there were local training programs dealing with disaster management, risk reduction, etc., etc., I was invited from tourism to participate in such local training programs. So I had the opportunity to be trained at NEMO locally, to receive certificates, to be exposed to certain knowledge and education concerning disaster management, and even looking at it from the point of view of how it could and would affect the tourism industry. I remember also sitting on training programs with other colleagues from the tourism and hospitality industry, from the Hotel and Tourism Association, for example. In addition to this, I also had the opportunity to travel in the region. I remember going to a meeting, disaster management related meeting in St. Lucia, alongside officers from NEMO. So I've had some exposure and I see what goes on. We were trained, we were taught even how to do assessments, how to be able to actually report on something that is happening in an area, etc. Even encouraged to personally have disaster plans in place in our homes. NEMO is an agency of government that is very important for all of us. And when we speak about it, and I want to make an appeal to people in leadership positions, you have to be very careful, sensitive, and responsible about how you speak. Because as leaders, we have influence, people listen to us, and if we give the wrong messages, we could cause people to turn a deaf ear and a blind eye to important things that an organization like NEMO is saying, and this could cause them to be at grave risk. And I say that with no apology. When I learned the things I learned at NEMO, there was no party color involved. It was about lives and saving country and doing as much as you can to respond as quick as possible, etc. in any disaster. Now, having said those things, I want to indicate that a lot of what I learned as a public servant with NEMO never left me. So during the times, for example, when we had the Thomas hurricane and the April floods, I put some of what I had learned in some of those training sessions into practice. So for example, and at that time I was with the opposition NDP, and I recall persons complaining to me several months after the Thomas hurricane that they had not received any help. And in most of the cases, it was felt that it was because they were a supporter of the NDP. And these people seemed to have legitimate claims as well, because they compared with their neighbors and others in their area who they saw getting material even though they hadn't suffered damage. And so it was really understandable that such persons would be offended, and justly so. That it was either taking so long for them to get help, or that they hadn't got help as yet, while they could see neighbors and others who were getting material who didn't even need it. What did I do? As a responsible servant of the people, I didn't just go on a radio or TV and talk and complain. I took down the people's information, who they are, who they were, where they lived, what is the damage, did anybody from NEMO come to you, what did they tell you? In some cases I was told they said they would come back. Did they come back? No. Did you follow up? No. Or you might hear, yes, I went and I went again and I still didn't get anything. So what did I do? I took the information, as many cases as I could, and I reported the information to NEMO. I informed officers there, this person didn't get this person said NEMO came, they didn't get, etc. And I was able to come back right here through this program and show you examples of persons who, after I intervened on their behalf, they got help and they were able to do something and they were expressing gratitude and so on. I say all of that to show you the history. Where there were problems, I took the initiative to report them and to seek assistance on behalf of those persons. I am not saying that all of the persons got help, because we heard in the parliament the very Prime Minister admitted that one of the weaknesses during the time of the floods and so on, and I think Thomas also, I stand corrected, was that there was no provision for assisting destruction of businesses. He mentioned that that was one of the weaknesses. But also there are persons who did not get assistance. And he did say, I have in my notes, he did say that after fixing, I'm paraphrasing here, after addressing the problems of the recent disaster in terms of rebuilding and helping persons and so on, he did say that they will address the residual cases or the cases that remain unassisted from Thomas and the April floods. So we as a people must hold them accountable to that promise, because I have asked the question, what is going to happen to the persons who did not get assistance since Thomas or even since the floods? Because this whole disaster has reawakened, or has resurrected their plight, because they're complaining that, well, I didn't even get help back then, and now we have other people to help, so what's going to become of me? So I was glad to hear the Prime Minister say today that his intention is to deal with those cases after they have addressed the current cases before us. So we will be holding him to his word, okay? Right. So, having explained to you the position I took, I want to say this is how we are to be. This is the responsible thing to do. It is not responsible to say you're not going to work with Nemo. It is not responsible to say, as the opposition leader said today, that not over his dead body will any relief items coming to the NDP go through Nemo. There is a better way to address whatever concerns you may have about what you may hear about what goes on with Nemo. But I want to just, first of all, give an overview of what the DRP has been involved in so far. And I've shown you some of it here. Let me tell you, from the night of the disaster, after receiving a call from a husband and father of a family who was affected by the floods, my next telephone call right after was to call an officer at Nemo to report what I was hearing and to also find out from their end what they knew and how are they doing. I was informed that clearly, because of the nature of the situation, it would not be possible to do any assessment until in the morning when the storm is past. And since that time, I have kept in touch with Nemo in one way or the other, and I'm going to explain. One of my early requests was for information about accessibility, because I wanted to know how I could take help to persons, but I knew that certain areas were cut off, the road was in a bad condition, all the debris, etc., and I had to be careful. I asked for contact information of shelter managers where shelters were in place, so I could try to discern or assess the needs so that I could ensure that whatever contribution I make and the DRP, it would be effective. Since that time, I have kept in touch with shelter managers. Due to accessibility cautions and my own limitations, transportation-wise, I made my first outing to 2 shelters on Friday the 27th of December 2013, 2 days after the disaster. I met and spoke with shelter managers. I handed over items to them. I also distributed items myself to individual families and children. At no time, and I want to make this clear, at no time was I forbidden from doing any of this by any of Nemo's officials. In other words, no shelter manager told me I couldn't go and talk to the people. None of them were rude to me, pushed me away or anything like that. They were very professional. They were very cooperative. They were very communicating. They communicated with me well. And we had a good relationship in working together to help people. In fact, at the shelters I went to that day, I was facilitated in gathering children together to present them with little goodie bags of snacks and toys because I wanted to bring a little chair to them. And I also engaged in playtime with some of them at one of the shelters in Bookament at the time. Another point, from discussions with individuals at the shelters, I identified other needs which were, in my view, overlooked. In all people's rush to take used clothing, etc., certain intimate kinds of clothing were overlooked, and you can't take used clothing for certain intimate things. You know what I'm talking about. So we worked to take some new, brand new, of those intimate things to women and children especially. And we went back to 3 shelters on the 29th. We added Spring Village when we went back. So we went Bookament, Spring Village, Rosebank at the time. I want to stress that at no point Nemo hindered me from helping. In fact, for the most part, I have dealt with very organized and professional shelter managers. They have their challenges, but I've had no problems dealing with them. And I really want to say that this has been my experience, because I really believe that if the opposition's attitude and approach, the opposition NDP, to this whole issue was more professional, that things would go better. Because it is not that I don't have problems with some of the things I see, but what have I done where I saw things that weren't going right? I'm coming to that. So you ask the question, did I receive complaints from persons about politicization of relief efforts? Yes, I did. What did I do? I asked questions, a lot of questions, and I discovered the following. Point number 1, some persons did not get damage and admitted this to me, but complained because they claim people were sharing out things and they were given to everybody, both to those who got damage and those who didn't, but they had not received anything. I asked who the people were. Some of them didn't know. I simply encouraged them not to worry about it, because if they didn't get damage, they really shouldn't expect anything. Only those who got damage should get, and should certainly get first. Point number 2. Some people got help, but claimed it wasn't Nemo. When investigation was done, in some cases, it proved that it was in fact Nemo who sent the help, but it was distributed or delivered by other persons, for example, cadets. So they may not have known that, and they would have said that they didn't get anything. But I'm saying, I'm appealing, oh Lord, if you got things, even if it wasn't Nemo, don't say you didn't get. Be grateful still. Point number 3. This one is unfortunate, but it is true. Some have got help, but they are claiming they didn't get help. Point number 4. Where I met persons who genuinely didn't receive help, I reported it. And I have also filled, and I am filling in gaps where I can. For example, on the last visit the DRP made, because of interaction with the people at the shelters and the shelter managers, we discovered that even though parents were getting assistance with uniforms for children, they did not have any appliances like iron and ironing board to iron their clothes for school. So whatever access we had to financial help, we took it and we bought irons and ironing boards and hangers, and we took them to at least 3 of the shelters on the North Leeward end of the country, to Fitzhughes, to Rillan Hill, which is where Bookament was relocated, and to Spring Village. So we try to give things that are needed and that would benefit the people greatly. There were also instances where some parents, for whatever reason, let's say they got a voucher to go to a certain store to get uniforms and shoes, but maybe the store did not have the size shoes for the child. We have been trying to fill the gaps by helping some parents by going to another store to get a shoes for the child. These are the kind of things that we've been doing. Now, this is being done through working with people in the shelters and shelter managers who belong to the agency for Nemo. So this is working with Nemo. It doesn't mean that you have to go and carry your things to Nemo. Nemo is not hindering anybody from going to directly to families. But you have to realize, if you're going to just go and not communicate with shelter managers, you might find that you're just giving to one set of people and others are not getting. So in order to be able to be effective and to do it properly, it is best to communicate. That way there would not be duplication of efforts and your help could be most effective, because that's what you really want if you really want to help. So when I hear the opposition leader in Parliament saying that not over his dead body would any relief coming to the NDP go through NEMO, I find it is very irresponsible of him to say such a thing. NEMO is a government agency in law that exists, and today, tomorrow, any other party takes government, they have to work with NEMO. What are you going to do? Fire the whole of NEMO staff because you don't trust them? If you think there are problems there, address the problems in a professional way. Find ways to get around them and show the people that you're willing to work along with them, but bad-mouthing them or having your representatives or persons who are known to be your main supporters and spokespersons bad-mouthing them is not going to help the situation. This is unacceptable from a party that wants to take government and say that they are the major opposition in the country. And I am appealing to supporters of the NDP. Do not accept this kind of behavior from your party, even though it is the party you support. You need to hold them accountable. I sat in the Parliament and I saw 7 elected members. Only the opposition leader debated the budget. And after he finished debating the budget, I was there. And I heard the speaker ask at least 3 times, any further debate? No member of the opposition got up to debate the Prime Minister's presentation the day before. Instead, the Prime Minister was moved to wind up the debate, and they got up and they walked out. No, no, no. This is unacceptable behavior from what is supposed to be the main opposition in the country. You know why? I don't want to hear, well, it was an interim budget, we have to wait on the supplementary estimates to debate it. The estimates have already been presented in December. You can debate them still. And you can say when you are debating that there's not much we can say on this or that because we are awaiting the supplementary estimates which might show a difference, a big difference in this or that area. You can get up and debate and say that. Secondly, you can debate on what the Prime Minister said in his budget presentation. Yes, you can, because he made a presentation. That's what the opposition leader was supposed to have been responding to when he spoke. So if he could get up and debate it, why the others can't debate? You're sitting down waiting for the ministers of government to get up and debate. Their Prime Minister have already presented the general budget. And it is misleading to give the public the impression that you, the opposition, has to wait until the ministers of the government side speak so you could rebut. Let me tell you why it is misleading. Two points why. One, I was with the opposition NDP, and I remember at least in the first year of budget debate when we were preparing, we were advised, make sure you get up quick to debate, because if we don't get up quick, the possibility exists that the Prime Minister could get up and wind up the debate and we wouldn't get a chance to speak. So the opposition very well knows what they were doing. Secondly, the second reason why I say it is inexcusable is that you can debate the areas that you shadow because the estimates have already been presented and the result indicators and the results are already there in the book. You can debate them even if the minister whose area you shadow has not yet spoken. It has been done already. So those are just lame excuses for not doing your jobs. And I'm calling you all out on this because you are the government, you are the legally represented parliamentary opposition, and you have a duty to the people. You don't collect taxpayers' money every month to sit down and refuse to debate the budget over foolish excuses and then walk out. That is not why the people have voted for you. If you're fed up and you figure it's the same old thing every year, stand up and say that. But don't sit down and say nothing. And then ask us as Vincentians to accept that. If you don't want the job, if you're fed up and you're too tired, you figure it's too much to endure, then give the job to somebody else. And I'm very upset about this matter because we complain and you argue that the government is not doing this, the government is not doing that. I agree. that there are things the government can do better. I'm an opposition party, the DRP. But what are you saying by getting up and walking out after refusing to debate the budget? It's not even like you debated it and then you decided, well, we don't want to hear the Prime Minister's wrap up because he's going to take a punch at us politically, so we walk out. But you didn't debate it at all. And then you're trying to justify having not done that. It is not justified. And with all due respect, because you are all elected members, with all due respect, you have failed in this regard. And if anything, you have given the Prime Minister opportunity to continually chastise you when you should be doing the people's jobs. There are people out there who wanted to hear their issues represented, who wanted to hear what's going to happen with the river situation by Bookament, for example, by the resort. Are they going to build a defense? You could have stood up and represented those issues. You could have stood up and asked, query issues pertaining to the state of the people in the shelters. Are they comfortable enough? What can we do better? You could have talked about so many things, but you didn't. And you expect the people of this good country to accept your behavior as acceptable behavior for a major opposition in our country. It is unacceptable, and I'm saying to Vincentians, don't accept it. Call out your NDP representatives for what they have done or failed to do in this case. But I'm also saying that I, Anissa Batiste, from the Democratic Republican Party, will shortly present some semblance of a budget presentation to you, the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Yes, I will give a presentation on the budget shortly. So listen out for it. Because I believe that as a public servant and as a servant of the people, and that's one of our watch phrases, bringing new hope from service to the people. And I believe that as a servant of the people, I have a duty, I have a responsibility to speak to you and tell you what I think, what our party thinks, what we can do better, what we can do differently, if there are good programs from the government, how they can be improved for you, the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I know I have said a mouthful. I really wanted to address this. I really think it's unfair that public servants who are working hard are being blamed unnecessarily. I really think that proper investigation needs to be done before you open your mouth and speak. I really think that the opposition, NDP, failed miserably in representing the people who have elected them and whose taxpayers' monies they are being paid from. And I believe they have shown that they are not fit to be opposition in this country, let alone governments. But this DRP, my dear people, this Democratic Republican Party, with your leader, a public servant, Mrs. Anissa Batiste, I know how to work with government. I know how to work in government. I know how to work with NEMO, work with state agencies. I know how to be professional and respectful and get things done with state agencies, even though we are on different sides of the political fence. Because I'm interested in the people and they see this and they allow me to do what I have to do. So until our next program, please listen out to the DRP for what we have to say on the budget. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And remember to hold your representatives accountable because their duty is to serve you. And you can call us on this telephone number, 528-1015. That's 528-1015. Until next time, may God bless you. Amen.